Hello, and welcome to a special GIS feature. I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letsom. Back in February, the Ministry of Health and Social Development launched their 4-part series on farm education that educated the public on asthma management strategies, drug interactions, pharmacovigilance, and the proper disposal of unwanted medicines. Today, our conversations revolves around asthma management and the new tools that the ministry has developed to ensure that people living with asthma and caregivers of persons with asthma can effectively manage this condition. To tell us more about the latest asthma tools we are calling Asthma Education 101, we have with us Chief of Drugs and Pharmaceutical Services, Mrs. Gracia Weasley-Smith. Thank you for joining us, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you for having me, Ms. Letsom.
Not a problem. So Asthma Education 101, first of all, I'd like to welcome you back to the program. And this is not our first time having this conversation revolving asthma and pharmacovigilance, which is a very important topic.
Yes.
Why are we continuing to have the asthma talk?
We are continuing to have the asthma talk because we have a high rate of asthma in the British Virgin Islands. And not only asthma, but also respiratory conditions, of which we can use the same medicines for asthma to help control. So what we want to do is empower individuals to be able to monitor their condition. And it can, reduce the time of going to the hospital in the emergency room for nebulization if we can prevent and not have it occur, or if we can reduce the rate of which it occurs. And then we want you to be able to competently take care while you're having an asthma attack.
No, we have Asthma Education 101, which your unit has developed a series of teaching tools. Tell us a bit about that.
Currently, we are launching today Asthma Facts for parents and children. And we are also launching a workbook for younger children. We have them in series. So we have 3 to 5. And it's, as you can see, a wonderful workbook with activities that are slated for children that age. So we have coloring, and they are learning while they're coloring. Here we have connect the dots, and when they finish, they would recognize that this is a lung, And here we have one child who is perfectly breathing and one who's suffering with asthma. So they will become familiar with the symptoms, how she is holding her abdomen and she's struggling to breathe. So we have tailored the activities matching what are the triggers. We explain what triggers are here. And then we ask them to find the triggers and match them to the appropriate word. So we have this for the little 3 to 5. It's big, just enough for them to color, with enough space for them to color. And letting them know what they can do, like before they play sports, how to use the inhaler before, so it can prevent an asthma attack from coming on when they're breathing in the cold air at a more rapid pace. Then we have the one that is for the 6 to 11. And we have it with a bit more reading. That is geared for them, showing what the lungs would look like. We speak about the inhaler. And we have a little track for them to follow. We speak about the use of the peak flow meter and the spacer. So it gives them information on what asthma is and how they can develop it. And even in this book, what I really like is that we can use an asthma plan, and they can develop an asthma plan with their parents. So of course, we are encouraging parents to make this a lively activity and to do it with their children. Take time out, and they can develop an asthma plan that can chart. And by this, the child will know how they are feeling, when they should do their asthma pumps, and when they should alert their parents that they may need to go to the hospital. And we have our little puzzles.
Nice, nice. Lovely, lovely publications you have there, filled with all sorts of educational material that I from looking at it right now, looks very age appropriate, especially the one for the 3 to 5 year olds. I think they would enjoy that. What motivated the production of these books?
Well, in 2014, we had a 3-series asthma workshop tailored for children and parents and caregivers of anyone. Anyone was welcome to attend. And during that series, we also had an activity part where they demonstrated the use of the inhaler, the peak flow. And from that, I realized with the guest speaker, Mr. Francis Burnett from the OECS PPS, Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Pharmaceutical Procurement Service, I realized that we needed to do a little more teaching because they were not being used properly. So I figured, let me do a book. The children, in doing the activities, will come to realize what can be improved.
Now, Mrs. Smith, I know you had a review session to ensure that the publications were age appropriate and the content was a good content for parents as well as students. Talk a bit about that review session that you had.
Well, what we did is that we actually downloaded some books, printed a few, and then we distributed them to teachers of the particular age group, to children, to parents, and also to grandparents. And we asked them to go through the books and to make suggestions on how we can improve the presentation to make it fun while vital in giving the information. And at this time, I would like to thank them so much for their participation, not to mention my co-workers at the Ministry of Health who also participated in the process, especially Ms. Kenya Jeffers, our public health specialist, who's behind the design of these books. She did a wonderful job.
Nice, nice. Congratulations to all who took part in the review and also who were instrumental in assisting with the design and development of these books. Now, Mrs. Smith, in a perfect world, how do you see the books being used, and do you have any room for expansion?
In a perfect world, how I envision the books being used as they were being developed is the little children, they have asthma attacks, and we want to empower them as much. And I also wanted to make it a fun learning activity between parents and children. So of that age group, it would be nice if the parents can schedule a time in the evening or on the weekends when they can actually go through and encouraging the coloring and read the instructions to the little children as to what asthma is and who is having the asthma attack, and point out to them, the differences and so forth. So for that 3 to 5, it would be wonderful if the parents go through with them. As we get to the 6 to 11, well, they're a bit more on the reading side, but I would still ask parents to make it a parent-child activity in reading and in explaining, because when they interact, parents will also become more empowered about treating asthma and managing asthma. And yes, we do have room for expansions because we have not left out our teenagers. So yes, there is a series that is coming for 12 to 16 years of age.
Awesome, awesome work. Now, what about expansion into the schools? Are we considering having these books used as part of the curriculum? Are you anywhere with that?
One of the teachers who was in the review session actually is in the Ministry of Health. So we still have to dialogue, because what I would like to do is to see them in schools. I'm not sure about having them as a part of the curriculum. That will have to be up to the Ministry of Education. But at least for distribution, we should be able to get them in schools, in churches, and so forth.
Okay, that would be nice. So when will the books be available, and how would persons be able to obtain a copy?
The books will be available at the Health and Safety Fair on Tuesday, next week Tuesday, at the Government Breezeway. If you look for the table of the Chief of Drugs and Pharmaceutical Services, they will be there. There will be copies that are free for distribution. So they can come and they can get their copy. Also, we will be, as soon as we get mass production, sending them to daycare centers for the appropriate age, also to schools and churches and physician offices. Yes. So we are hoping to have them available island-wide, both on Tortola and on the sister islands, yes.
Well, wonderful stuff. I know that our viewing audience was looking for a whole 30-minute program today, but we're just giving you a little tease today about these new publications, new tools that are being added to the arsenal to help to educate the community with regards to asthma and asthma management, which is very important for us in the territory. Before we close the program now, Mrs. Smith, just leave us with a few tips, that few strategies that persons who may not have been exposed to some of the other recordings we did outlining asthma management strategies could be able to function a little better.
Well, the first thing I would say about asthma is for you to know what triggers your situation. Is it a furry animal in the bed, such as a bear, a teddy bear? We like to keep teddy bears. The carpets, do they need to be cleaned and holstered? Do they need to be vacuumed? What about your upholstery? Is it a particular food that may be triggering it, or perfume? So you will need to look at your surroundings. Know your triggers, and by knowing your triggers, you can avoid and developing an attack. Also know how to use your medicines. Know which one is the preventer, which one is the treatment, and how to use them. Can you use them effectively, or do you need to add a spacer so that you can get the medication in your lungs at a better rate? What about using a peak flow meter? So you can chart whether you're in your green zone or your red zone and know you need treatment at the hospital, or you have pending attacks because you're in the amber zone or the yellow zone. So those are things that you can do. Following an asthma plan is very, very, very good.
Well, thank you again, Mrs. Smith, for coming on the program and sharing with us these new tools that your department has developed with regard to asthma and asthma management. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Letson, for having me.
Not a problem at all. Asthma is a condition that affects a huge cross-section of the population. We are encouraging persons with asthma or caregivers of persons with asthma to tap into the many resources that allows them to educate themselves on the best strategies to manage their condition. We want to thank Mrs. Gracia Wheatley Smith again for coming on the program and sharing this information with us today that we all could use, asthmatics or not, to educate our children about this disease. Remember, knowledge is power, but the application of knowledge saves lives. Reporting for the Ministry of Health and Social Development, I am Public Health Communications Specialist Natasha Letson. Peace and blessings.